Hello Internet, it's me Josh, the Aging Gamer. So back in the day when I was a little kid, just a little aging gamer, I was all about Nintendo consoles and Sega consoles. During that fourth generation of gaming, that's all I thought there was. It wasn't until many years later that I heard about something called a TurboGrafx-16. I mean, back in the day, I don't remember seeing them in stores, I don't remember seeing ads or anything for them. I didn't know a single person that even owned one, so it's like, what even is a TurboGrafx-16? In 1987, the system was released in Japan, where it was known as the PC Engine. The system actually did pretty damn well over there. In 1989, the system got a name change for the Americas and was now called the TurboGrafx-16. The system was made from a collaboration of the NEC Corporation and Hudson Soft. The TurboGrafx would have a few big-name developers like Namco and Konami for support, and the system itself would see add-ons like a CD drive to play more advanced games. The TurboGrafx did terrible over here in the States for a variety of reasons. First off, marketing for this was awful. Also, the system only saw around 138 games released in the US, while in Japan it saw a total of 686 games. Yeah, Japan saw around 5 times as many games as the US. No wonder it did so well over there. It also lacked a lot of IPs that were popular in America at the time. There was no Mega Man, Mortal Kombat, or Street Fighter titles, and there was no Ninja Turtles, Marvel Comics, Mickey Mouse, or any variety of licensed cartoons that kids were crazy about. There was a shitty Darkwing Duck game, but that was about it. Meanwhile, the rival system saw a lot of licensed games. And compared to the likes of the NES, Super NES, Sega Master System, and Sega Genesis, the TurboGrafx-16 just couldn't compete in the US market. And in 1994, the system became discontinued in both US and Japan. The TurboGrafx-16 seems to be a lot more popular now, especially among collectors. As for someone like myself, I figured now is the best time to try this out and see what the TurboGrafx-16 is all about. Despite being burnt out on these mini consoles, let's take a look at it. Let's take a look at the TurboGrafx-16 Mini! So this is the system. It's small, but not nearly as many as the other tiny consoles that have been released in recent years. It's got the basic setup, you know, AC adapter, an HDMI in the back, and a USB controller slot in the front. As for the controller, this is it here. Like I said, I never played on a TurboGrafx before, so I didn't know what to expect, so I was a bit surprised to see how similar it is to an NES controller. The only difference is that instead of a start button, it's called run, and instead of A and B, it's got a 1 and 2 button. It's also got little turbo settings here, which is something you'd usually see on off-brand controllers. It's a neat little addition, but to be honest, throughout playing these games, I never found a spot in a game where having a button set on turbo would actually be helpful. The turbo options are also only available on the TurboGrafx Mini and not the PC Engine Mini. The controller feels comfortable and the buttons don't feel mushy or hard to play with. The cord is also long enough so you don't have to worry about sitting next to the console. When playing a game, press run and select at the same time. It'll bring you back to a save state screen, or you can go back to the main menu. There's different settings so you can adjust the screen, background borders, and even add CRT scan lines. So, with that said, let's move on to the actual games. So on this Mini, we got a total of 57 games. Some are from the TurboGrafx-16, and some are from the Japanese PC Engine. Since there are so many games, I'm not going to go over all of them, just the ones that stand out to me. First, I have to say, there is a lot of side-scrolling shooters here. If you're not a fan of shooters, you're going to be a bit disappointed because they make up for like a third of the library. As for myself, shooters aren't my favorite, but I've definitely warmed up to them in recent years. The ones I played here, some are actually pretty fun. The problem is that most of them just start blending together. With that said, I really like the Lords of Thunder. It's got a great aesthetic and kinda stands out. Star Parader is pretty fun too, and it even stars Bomberman. How could I not like this? There's another shooter, Cho Aniki, that I'm not sure how to feel about. It's so weird. Just listen to this music. And the characters and animations are weird too. I mean, look at the game over screen. What the hell am I even looking at? So if you like shooters, you'll probably like this system. There's even fan favorites like Gradius and R-Type on here. Moving away from shooters, there's a game called The Kung Fu, where you play as a gigantic Bruce Lee knockoff named Wang. So as this giant Wang, you'll dodge rocks and beat the crap out of robed guys until you get to the boss. It's odd and not really fun. A game I did find fun though was Ninja Spirit. It reminded me a bit of Ninja Gaiden, but it's very much a game of its own. Slashing and defeating enemies in every direction all around you, it's great. Speaking of Ninja Gaiden though, the Japanese version of the TurboGrafx port is here. Wait, did Ryu always not wear shoes? You guys know that I love me some Ninja Gaiden, but this version isn't all too great. The gameplay feels a little off, and for some reason they completely butchered the music. There are a few other familiar IPs here as well, like there's a Japanese version of Ghosts and Goblins, Fantasy Zone, and Space Harrier. There's also a few Bomberman games, with Bomberman 94 being my absolute favorite. I had some good times playing that on the Sega Genesis back in the day. There's also Splatterhouse, which I love. Unfortunately, this is the one we did not get a Japanese version of. Instead, we got the censored American version. Lame. We also got New Adventure Island. I love seeing Master Higgins again, and this game is pretty fun. One series I didn't really play before until now is the Bonk series. There's the Japanese version of the first Bonk game and the American version of the second game, Bonk's Revenge. I really like these games as well. The bonking mechanic is pretty fun and a little different from other games around that time. Headbutting these KKK-looking characters out of existence just feels so satisfying. The TurboGrafx Mini has a few RPGs as well. Newtopia and Newtopia 2 are Zelda-like games that I feel I can get into. While at this time I haven't spent too much time playing them, from what I have played, I really want to play more. There's also the popular Ys 1 and 2 games on here. I actually played this game back on the Wii's Virtual Console because everyone was raving about how it was one of the best games on the system. For me personally, I think it could be fun, but I'm just not really feeling the whole run into an enemy to hurt them gameplay. Why can't I just tap a button to swing my sword? There's another game called Kadash where you pick a class type and then you go on a side-scrolling platforming adventure where you can level up by defeating enemies. I like the concept, but I couldn't really get into this game either. There's an action RPG called Dungeon Explorer. I didn't spend a whole lot of time with this one yet, but I feel I can maybe get into it. There's a few other games on this mini, like golf and racing. Neither I felt were all too exciting here though. There's a strategy game featured on here too. We also got a pinball game, Alien Crush, which is amusing to play if you're into pinball games. There's also a game called JJ and Jeff where you go around kicking everything in sight. I've heard people talk about this game before, and while it's nothing mind-blowing to me, it's lighthearted and funny enough that it's great to play after the many serious-toned games featured here. And the last game I want to talk about is my absolute favorite on this system, Castlevania Rondo of Blood. This game features Richter Belmont rescuing his love and fighting off Dracula. It's a really fun game with some really awesome cutscenes. It's a game that I actually want to do a full-on review later on down the road. So with all of this said, as someone who has no nostalgia for the system whatsoever, is a TurboGrafx-16 Mini worth getting? Well, of course, that depends. There's a lot of good games here and a lot of bad games. It's got more games than the NES, SNES, Genesis, and PS1 minis, but the 57 games included is a bit misleading. There's a few games on here that are available twice, in both English and Japanese versions, which seems kinda cheesy to me. Maybe there's some gameplay differences, but it still seems pretty pointless to up the game count by counting essentially the same game twice. And speaking of the Japanese games, some of them you might find unplayable. For example, I was super excited to hear that Snatcher, a game written and designed by the legendary Hideo Kojima, was on here, but with it all being in Japanese and me not being able to read Japanese, I find it unplayable. I mean, I guess I should have saw that coming, considering the English version was only on the Sega CD, but still, what a tease. There's a few other Japanese games that, unless you have some kind of translation guide, you'll have a very difficult time playing. It's not all gloom and doom though, because there's games I do like playing. Bonk's Revenge, Lords of Thunder, New Adventure Island, Newtopia, Bomberman, Ninja Spirit, Castlevania, and even if it's censored, Splatterhouse. Those are great games and fun to play. They just might not necessarily be games I would miss if I didn't have the system. Well, maybe Castlevania, but if you want to play Rondo of Blood, as well as its sequel Symphony of the Night, you can buy the bundle for the PlayStation 4 for only $20. I'm not trying to crap on this system, but when I look at the other mini consoles and what they had available, I really felt like I was getting a killer deal. Legendary games with very little filler and a price range from $60 to $80. That's awesome. Here, there's some good games, lots and lots of shooters, games in other languages, and then games like Kung Fu that haven't aged too well. For $100. Yikes! I'll likely get some fans of the system hating on me for saying these things, especially when we consider the value of the system. There's lots of games on here worth quite a bit of money, but as for someone like myself who was a player, not a collector, I'm not really concerned about things like that. I'm not saying this is a bad mini console, I just think in terms of the quality of games here, not rarity, I feel it's a bit overpriced. Again, I have no nostalgia for the system since I didn't grow up with it, so your opinions might differ, but I think if you're wanting to get a TurboGrafx-16 Mini, wait for it to go on sale. It does have some solid titles, and it is a window into a piece of gaming history that a lot of people never experienced, but if you're looking for the same Super Mario, Sonic the Hedgehog, Legend of Zelda quality of games you would find on the other minis, you won't quite get a lot of that here. Again, it's not a bad mini console, I just think the asking price needs to be slashed in half. But these are just my opinions. What do you guys think? Do you like this system? Do you think I'm being a little too harsh? Let me know in the comments below. I thank you guys for watching. If you want, go ahead and hit the like button. If you want, you can hit the dislike button. It's all good. And if you want to watch future videos, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I thank you guys for watching, and until next time, I will see you all on the next one.